A rich merchant watched everything he owned sink into the sea. Years later, he called it the best thing that ever happened to him, and he wasn't being brave. He meant it. The cargo was purple dye, the most expensive color in the world, gone to the seabed. He walked out of the water owning nothing. What he built next is still handed out 23 centuries later. 7 tools salvaged from one bad afternoon at sea. Meet Zeno of Citium, a merchant from Cyprus, rich by 30, ruined by one afternoon around 300 BC. He read his way back in a bookshop, studied 20 years, then taught free on a public porch. The Greek for porch is stoa, the only reason you know the word Stoic. No incense, no mysticism, 7 tools and not one was bought. Every piece was salvaged. Open the crate. Lesson 1. The gate agent says the word canceled, not delayed, canceled. 11 months of saving and the next seat out is Thursday. So you're at the desk explaining at volume to a woman with no say over the sky. You know it won't move the plane. You're doing it anyway. Zeno was running cargo to Piraeus when the weather took the ship. Purple dye, a color priced above silver on the seabed by evening. Years later, one line, "My most prosperous voyage began the day I was wrecked." Read it slowly, not "I recovered." Prosperous. The storm was over in an hour. The argument with it can last a decade. The move? When something is gone, count what sank. Out loud, 30 seconds, no adjectives. Say the list, then stop at the end of it. Most of us keep going into a list that hasn't happened yet. Field tested by a merchant who watched a cargo go down and filed it his best voyage. Approved for the plan that collapsed. Salvaged. But counting a loss is easy next to shutting your own mouth. Lesson 2. Dinner, and someone across the table is explaining why you're wrong. Somewhere in their second sentence, you stopped listening and started loading. You've got the counterexample ready, the pause before you deliver it. You're waiting for the gap. That isn't a conversation. That's 2 people taking turns reloading. A man could lose his standing in the Athenian agora before lunch on one bad sentence. Zeno's rule gets quoted as a manners note. "We have 2 ears and 1 mouth," he said, "so we should listen twice as much as we speak." That's a ratio. A foreigner with an accent, he had to know what a room wanted before he spoke. Listening twice was never politeness, it was reconnaissance. The move. Next disagreement, you don't answer until you can say their point back in 1 sentence, well enough that they nod. Say it back first, then take your turn. It costs 10 seconds and all your momentum. Half your arguments aren't about the thing. They're 2 people not feeling heard, getting louder. And a man who could listen still had to decide what was worth wanting. Lesson 3. The promotion went to someone else and you've got 4 stories in the lift to arrange your face. You didn't just want the title. You'd built a version of yourself on getting it, the message you'd send, the room you'd walk into differently. That version died in a 2-minute meeting. Nobody in the building knows there was a funeral. Zeno coined a word for what everyone gets wrong. Preferred. Health. Money. A good name. The title. He never called them evil. He ranked them. Prefer it. Chase it. Don't hand it the one job it cannot do. Deciding whether you're all right. He'd owned a hold of the most expensive color on Earth and watched it go under. Cargo can be priceless and still be a terrible judge of the captain. The move, tonight, take what you want most this year and write 2 lines under it. Line 1, what it actually gets me. Line 2, what I'm pretending it gets me. The second line is the ache, and it's usually 1 word. Proof. Safe. Finally. You're not throwing it off the shelf, you're labeling it honestly. Keep wanting it. Stop sending it to do a job it was never built for. Lesson 4. You've got a real decision. Leave the job or give it another year. So you ask around. 9 people in a week, most of whom have never once done the thing. You're not collecting information, you're collecting permission, and not one of them can issue it. Meanwhile, the ones who actually did it wrote it all down, and you haven't opened a page. Stranded, Zeno walked into an Athens bookshop and heard the seller reading Socrates aloud. He asked, "Where do I find a man like that?" The seller pointed out the door at a philosopher walking past. Zeno followed that trade for 20 years. One of you is typing, "Convenient, a shipwreck that drops you beside your life's work." Fair, it dropped him in a foreign town with no money, no citizenship, no plan, and a bookshop open to anyone. Objection noted. Objection overruled. The move? Stop taking the poll. Pick one person who has actually done the thing and ask them one specific question this week, in writing. Not any advice. Try, what did you get wrong in the first month? If nobody within reach has done it, somebody dead has, and they left the notes. But the man who found his teacher in a bookshop still needed 20 years to become one. Lesson 5. February. The gym has your money and no longer has you. 4 sessions a week, an hour each, starting the 1st. You did 9 days. The bag by the door is furniture now, and you walk past it like a person you owe. You didn't fail because you're weak. You wrote a program for a man with somebody else's week. Zeno taught on a public porch. The painted porch, battle scenes on the boards behind him, open to anyone walking past. His own line has words to spare, and they're the point. Well-being is realized by small steps, but is truly no small thing. Small steps, not small results. 500 years of Stoics came out of a drafty porch and a man who kept turning up. Salvaged, reissued, still running. The move? Cut it until it's embarrassing. Not 4 sessions, 2 minutes, same hour, shoes by the door. Small enough that quitting costs more. I ran a 2-minute version for a month. Week 3, the log reads, put the shoes on, stood there, took them off. That still counts as turning up. But one thing stops a small step cold. A person you've decided to hate. Lesson 6. The neighbor. 3 years of small crimes, the bins, the noise at midnight, the way he looks through you on the stairs, and he's a character in your head now, with a full backstory that you wrote. You've never spoken to the man longer than 11 words. You've argued with him for 3 years. Zeno lost his hometown, his trade, and his standing in one afternoon. Then he sat down and wrote a republic. Not a plan for Athens, a plan for everybody. No borders, no law courts, one shared community, every stranger already a fellow citizen. It's the most radical page in the school, from the man with the least reason to be generous. The man with no country drew a plan with no borders. The move. Next time you're running the imaginary argument, stop and say one true thing about his side, out loud. It has to be true. He works nights. His mother lives with him. You're taking the costume off a man you've never met. Field tested by a Phoenician outsider in a town that never made him a citizen. Approved for the neighbor you've cast as the villain. And every tool so far was a warm-up for the one he paid most for. Lesson 7. 12 years, 1 meeting, 1 box. You're in the car park with your own mug on the passenger seat and a badge that stopped working at 11. It isn't the money. Tuesday was supposed to be ordinary. It turned out to be the last one. You keep hunting for the sentence that would have changed it. There isn't one. That's the part you can't put down. So, the wreck. A rich merchant walks out of the surf near Piraeus with nothing. Everything he was going to be went down with the cargo. 30 years on, he's the most listened to man in Athens, saying it out loud. My most prosperous voyage began the day I was wrecked. Not because the storm was a gift, because he went back to the water and carried something up. The storm chose the cargo. It never chose what he carried up the beach. The move. 1 sentence, tonight, in writing. It starts, because that happened, I can now. Finish it honestly, and don't be noble about it. I found out who actually calls counts. If you genuinely can't finish it, date the page and come back in 90 days. Salvage keeps its own hours. You're asked to go back for the one piece worth carrying. Let's pack the crate. Let's pack the crate. Count what sank and stop at the end of the list. 2 ears, 1 mouth. Say their point back first. Prefer the cargo. Never let it grade you. Ask someone who's done it. Cut the step until it's embarrassing. Say one true thing about the villain you invented, and go back for the piece. 7 tools, no incense. Field tested, 1 merchant, 1 storm, 1 hold of purple on the seabed. Not one piece was bought. All of it was salvaged. Zeno taught on that porch for decades and died old in Athens around 262 BC. The accounts argue about the details and agree about the age. The town that never made him a citizen voted him a golden crown and wrote the reason into the decree. He had lived for years exactly as he taught. That's the rarest line in the record. Not that he was right, that he matched. For years I shelved this one under consolation, the line you hand somebody so a loss stops hurting. Too small a label, and I'm the one who wrote it. Zeno wasn't comforting himself on that beach, he was taking inventory, and you only take inventory of what you mean to use. It asks a colder question. It has already happened, so what's still usable? The wreck cost him a cargo. It handed him the only trade he couldn't lose. Homework is one line. Pick one tool, run it for 24 hours, then tell me in the comments what it cost you. Subscribe if you'd rather have the rest of the crate than the highlights. Next, Cato, the senator who walked through a Rome openly for sale and never named a price. Nobody could buy him. We'd like to ask what that cost the people who loved him.